Alright fellas, here back on our Pokemon reaction video. Again, to some more stuff by Amaze Dragon. I want to say, if they ever want me to stop reacting to stuff, 100% will. We'll take down the videos, no problem there. But, of course, I'll be adding my own commentary, I'll be adding my own thoughts and stuff to their theory. I'm not going to just be like, leeching off their content. Gonna try to actually put my own like little spins on everything that they're trying to say. We did a reaction to how did Necrozma steal Pokemon ZA's light. I watched this video originally before. I think their stuff with theories is pretty interesting to think about and can get you thinking in different areas, but I don't necessarily think a lot of their theories hit the mark exactly on a lot of ideas, but I am very curious about like what their concepts are going to be and like what ideas he brings. So let's go ahead and get this started and see, why was Giratina disowned by Arceus? Which, by the way, we look at this thumbnail, interesting. Your savior. We shall see, let's take a look.
To be the title of the renegade Pokemon due to its violent, destructive nature, causing it to be banished to the distortion world by Arceus. Or that's what the two want you to think. The real reason Arceus created Giratina was hidden from us for a reason. So let's start by
yeah, as we know, Giratina is like the fourth member of what was originally meant to be a trio of Dialga, Palkia, and Arceus, but it was the fourth member that ended up getting banished to the Distortion Realm for like disobeying and trying to, I believe, trying to like usurp Arceus. And so, obviously not many good relationships there. And I mean, that's a lot of that's explained in Legends Arceus, where we get Giratina and Volo, right? Like there's a lot of story there in that. So yeah, let's see how they kind of twist that.
Debunking its supposed powers.
Gravity and
Giratina
antimatter.
Doesn't control antimatter, nor does it control gravity. I think it's something
so we're saying it doesn't control everything's things. Okay, we'll see.
Completely different. Because here's the thing, real antimatter doesn't work like that at all. If 1 gram of antimatter were to come in contact with a gram of matter, it would release the same amount of energy as that of a small nuclear explosion.
Yeah, I mean, this is something basic science is like always basically told you, is like if antimatter, like the exact opposite effectively of matter, were to ever come, it would be like an equation that like just neutralizes itself, and it would atomic bomb explosion, right?
And well, Giratina certainly isn't known for blowing everything up.
Yeah, I mean, like leader of antimatter, like you would have to like really stretch that truth a lot, right? So I mean, yeah, that's definitely interesting. I mean, I doubt the Giratina is like the Pokemon of antimatter or whatever as well, just because of that. Like it doesn't make sense for Giratina to be that when it's not like destroying everything. It also has the ability to unleash that, but like as far as we know, it never has, or it never will. You know, let's keep this going.
To that degree of destruction. What about the theory that Giratina controls gravity? Well, if it really did control it...
I mean, they've definitely showed like the idea of it controlling gravity, given the distortion world's completely distorted like nature, but also at the same time, that's, you know, you can say gravity because you can literally move in all different directions, but like also it's more so like the time and space of the entire dimension is distorted. So, you know, it could also just not fit that.
Like how Dialga and Palkia govern time and space, you'd expect a signature move or a Pokédex line to confirm it, but none exist. Instead, its moves revolve around stealth and phasing through dimensions.
I mean, yeah, like Shadow Force, right? I mean, what are we going to lead to the theory that Giratina is more like the Pokemon of the Shadows or something? It'd be interesting. I mean, they definitely like tried to show that idea of like that Giratina is like the shadow to Arceus, like the opposite to Arceus, and like that's why it is antimatter, because, you know, it's the opposite of matter, but at the same time, antimatter specifically does not really work too well.
Not bending gravity wells like a black hole. Giratina controlling gravity also doesn't really explain its ghost typing. Palkia's water typing, on the other hand,
I mean, ghost type, you can stretch that. You can stretch that pretty far.
And makes sense. Because water adapts to all recipients. It symbolizes the space's ever-changing forms. Dialga's steel typing is also very easily explained, because steel is stable and unchanging, just like the nature of time. So if it's an antimatter nuke or a cosmic gravity well, that leaves something else entirely.
I guess that'd be psychic, wouldn't it?
As we know, Dialga's and Palkia's respective signature moves are known as Roar of Time and Spatial Rend, with each literally telling you what they...
So what, we're gonna go for the ideas that Giratina may control shadows?
But Giratina's, well, it's known as Shadow Force. not something like antimatter annihilation, even though that would be pretty cool.
That'd be
Thus,
gnarly.
It would actually make a lot of sense that Arceus gave Giratina control over the shadows, not antimatter.
So control over the shadows. I mean, yeah. So kind of figured we were kind of leading to that point. I mean, it's definitely plausible. Like, again, the theory of antimatter doesn't make sense. Gravity, a bit, it does definitely make more sense to me. But at the same time, you know, you can say it doesn't make it still doesn't make that much sense, given that it doesn't really have much relation to gravity outside of like the distorted dimensions of the distortion world, and of course it is more shadow focused, right? I mean, there's a lot you can definitely think about that with it, but like, what is the big aspect of controlling the shadows? Like, of course, you got the god of all Pokemon with Arceus. You've got time and space, two very important like pieces of reality, basically, and then you've got shadow. That's very random if you think about it.
Also finally allow for Giratina to fit in alongside the other two creation dragons.
Not really.
Dialga and Palkia never really follow this black and white morality we humans are used to. Instead,
true.
they like to follow this weird blue Instead, they like to follow this weird blue and orange motive, where they're still opposites of one another, sure, but you can't really figure out who's in the right and who's in the wrong. With Giratina being able to
you know, that's a very interesting way to describe it with colors.
shadows, it allows it to become the opposite of Arceus, its mirror. Think about the distortion world. It's not chaotic for the sake of chaos. Gravity flips, floors become walls, time doesn't flow normally. It's not broken, it's perfectly contrary to our own world. This isn't just poetic. The Hisuian
I mean, I think that's kind of just the point, is that, again, we obviously kind of knew, like, Giratina was meant to be more of the opposite to Arceus itself, not necessarily that Giratina was supposed to be, like, its own individual god of something. I guess I mean, though, if you think about it, I mean, that is true. I mean, that also kind of goes, like, against what you think is, like, there's massive implication that Giratina is, like, meant to be the opposite of Arceus, but at the same time, Giratina is one of Arceus's creations. But granted, people also want to think about, like, I guess, like, the existence can be, like, linked to Christianity's, like, God and Satan or something like that, in a similar sense, where, like, hold on, I need to actually fact check what I'm saying here. Okay, I went and confirmed, like, there's obviously the fact that, like, God created Satan, and obviously Arceus created Giratina, and then those kind of went to be, like, opposites, because everyone wants to say, oh, Arceus is the god of Pokemon, and then Giratina is the devil. It's like, you know, obviously don't got to be Christian or anything, or like believe in any of that stuff to just get that basic link, right? Obviously not trying to bring like religion into it, but that's just like what the most common thing a lot of people go to is with this. So I guess there is that realistic sense to it, that like, in the sense that even though Giratina is a creation of Arceus, like Dialga and Palkia, it ended up becoming more of an opposite to Arceus than like just, you know, a more like, than something that's like closer to origin of Dialga or Palkia, right? Even though they've got similar base stats in like both origin forms, and all three have origin forms and all that stuff, right? So I'm very curious to think about that, but like, Shadow. Why necessarily Shadow? Yes, it's the opposite to Arceus's light in a sense, but what can you really do with Shadow in like a sense of it being like the main thing you do?
Even says there's an old verse about a powerful light creating a deep shadow.
Well, yeah.
Powerful light, Arceus. That shadow, Giratina. So maybe Giratina doesn't actually destroy reality, it reflects it, holding it in balance alongside Arceus. Having said all that, what about the very...
I mean, you can, that's true. In a sense, that's true. If you think back to Pokemon Platinum, correct me if I'm wrong here, but like Giratina mostly arose because of the massive disturbance in reality that like Cyrus was pulling out because of it, like trying to control Dialga and Palkia, and that's why it got sucked into the distortion world to stop that. So like, despite Giratina, you always want to consider Giratina to be, oh, like an evil Pokemon or something like that, right? Like, it's not necessarily evil, but it's still, or you can say it maybe is, I don't know, whatever you want to think, but it still does its job as like a mender of reality, because even though the distortion world looks so chaotic and distorted, and like, you know, Giratina you can consider like a Lord of Chaos, again, consider that it took Cyrus' distortion world to stop it from, you know, basically stop Cyrus from creating a new world, basically breaking the world, whatever, right? So it actually jumped in order to stop all that when was necessary.
Various accounts that detail Giratina's destructive tendencies. In the games, it's always said that Giratina was banished for being violent. I mean,
I
even
mean,
Arceus
my big theory on that, before we actually hear what exactly they have to say here, is that Giratina is violent, or like it got banished because it's violent, but its violence is more so like the forced ability to have to like intervene with a problem using a lot of force, not necessarily it like. I wouldn't say it necessarily wants to be super violent and forceful, but like it only ever is going to interject or jump into a problem when it has to be violent. Like again, Cyrus trying to control Dialga and Palkia is like, okay, gotta stop this shit, suck them into the distortion realm, right? And be looking menacing and scary while at it.
themselves calls Giratina the banished Pokemon, and the clear definition of banishment is being sent away as punishment.
Yeah.
However, if you look closer,
Also, is that Saturn?
it's being sent
No, it looks like a mix of Saturn and Cyrus. It does not look like Cyrus.
away as punishment. However, if you look closer, this story also starts to fall apart. If Giratina was really banished, then how can it travel back and forth between the worlds so easily? And
Yeah.
why do the games also mention Giratina actually being gifted the Distortion World, not being imprisoned there? Here, look at the inscriptions of the Spooky Plate and
The other side of this world was given by the original one to its raging third. Oh, that's cool. I never actually viewed the like description there on the ghost plate, but that's very cool. That's very, very cool. Other side of this world. So yeah, like the distortion world, just like basically a reflection of the modern world, you know, with its chaotic look, where like the light world is probably more like refined or whatever. But yeah, Giratina obviously does have the ability to transport between worlds. Again, that's kind of my main theory with Giratina, is that it is there to interject. Like Dialga and Palkia can interject themselves, but like if all else fails, Giratina itself will interject and like be violent, be like raging if it has to.
of Arceus. It states that Arceus gave the Raging Third, otherwise known as Giratina, the other side of the world, or well, the Distortion World.
Yeah.
The Iron Plate also mentions
That which fills the other side of the world can shape and shape the rage and mold it. Wait, that which fills the other. That's very interesting.
which fills the other side of the world can shape the rage and mold it. So obviously Giratina is also very much
Oh, shape the rage of the world. Okay, I was thinking like if someone could control the distortion world, they could also control Giratina. But no, okay, it's more so like Giratina is the one that can control the other side of the world. And like shape its chaotic energy.
the rage and mold
Basically, that's interesting.
So obviously Giratina is also very much in control of his emotions, not a mindless beast.
For sure.
Even Cynthia, the champion who
Giratina
Pavloved
is
an entire
intelligent.
generation, hints at this in Pokemon Masters EX.
Master. Oh, we're using masters. Okay, sure. Yeah, no, okay. Look, gonna be honest with you. This is gonna be controversial as a Pokemon Masters YouTuber, but I would never take anything Pokemon Master status as like in lore canon. I would mostly just take it as like an alternate universe canon at like best. That's about the best you can do with that.
To her dialogue though, here's a quick note on the validity of this game's events. There was an interview done with Pokemess's producer Yu Sasaki, who worked with the Pokemon Company to ensure that the actions and words the character
Closely on the game, yeah, consider the personas and backgrounds of the trainers and make sure their content did not deviate from that. Okay, this makes sense. It's like you're not gonna change your trainers and like make them have, you know, be different. But what I'm trying to say is that like these events are obviously, you know, in line for the characters given what situation's happening, but I don't think that these events are anything that like is gonna ever be considered to like actually have happened, or like relationships that develop in this game are not going to be relationships that I've considered to develop in like the main series. It's like, yes, if you branch it out, could be true, but it's more of like an expansion on anything than like something they're actually going to end up utilizing more than anything.
say in the EX games do not deviate from what they would do in the games, so this is still very much lore accurate. Anyway, here is what she says. There are few existing theories as to why Giratina was in a world
Okay, in this case, you can definitely like utilize the game for like information. If the game itself is giving you a bit of lore, then like maybe.
According to one, Giratina was banished to another world for its violence. However, as I kept
yeah, okay, so she gives an alternative. Continue.
Myths and reference materials from different angles,
Start to uncover the truth.
I think Giratina is actually a kind soul.
Watching over a world from the shadows to protect us. This is lining up pretty much with my theory. I think Giratina is... You can say it's a kind soul. You can say however you want to say it, but I think that Giratina's big main of interjection is when Dialga and Palkia fail, and it has to bring in a lot of violence.
from the shadows to protect us.
Because it is
Since
pretty
gods
violent.
also don't have a good track record of being truthful, it might be the case that Arceus didn't create Giratina, and instead, they were created at the same time. Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments. And
Again, you know, I don't want to bring, like, you know, real life religion too much into it, but I mean, there's obviously cases where, like, an almighty creator can make a creation that can, I'm not gonna say rival its power, but, like, I mean, well, that's even true itself, but, like, you know, bring itself to be like a polar opposite of that original creator without actually needing to be having been there originally.
you're doing that, consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, give this guy some viewership,
Giratina
please.
labeled as the banished Pokemon if it isn't actually as destructive as it's first made out to be? That can actually be explained by humanity's constant need to put a moral label on everything
Yeah.
and everyone.
Oh, for sure.
We humans love to label everything as good or bad.
I mean, if you do think about it, like, unless Arceus itself originally came down and gave you this information, a lot of like the lore or information regarding Arceus, outside of like direct talkings to it in Legends Arceus, are mostly inferences based off of certain events. So like you can say, oh, Giratina was banished, but it may not have actually been the case because it's mostly humans trying to like comprehend and make things up, right? Or like find explanations for things, you know, a theory, obviously.
Those lines shift all the time depending on what the society currently values.
Yeah,
So
for
it's a
sure,
human
for sure.
construct, not something a god would even reference or care for. We don't want to think about the fact that maybe our world needs something that lives in the dark. So that's
I mean, yeah,
what
exactly.
Giratina
Like that's also another big one is that like the light always needs to, I want to kind of back up there, but like the light always needs the dark or something in order to exist. You can't have one without the other. You can't have just a pure world of light without having a world of dark, or having a Pokemon of light without having a Pokemon of dark, right? It doesn't make sense.
Our world needs something that lives in the dark. So that's exactly what Giratina uses to its advantage, staying hidden in the shadows so it can keep balance without any...
I think that might just be less of a case of like, I guess maybe you could technically use this theory to explain that in a roundabout way, but like, yes, Giratina is the Lord of Shadows, but it's less so that it's the Lord of Shadows and more that it's the like the Pokemon that has similar power or abilities to Arceus, but in a more opposite way, which, you know, light would be shadow, you know, that's why they say antimatter, because it's the opposite of matter, but it's not that it's necessarily antimatter, it's more just the opposite of what you consider, like controlled, chaotic, time, lack of time, space, lack of space, right? Something like that.
meddling. But Giratina being viewed in a negative light has to have come from somewhere, and I think it's from this old story. Within
Cantaloupe City
library, there's a myth, specifically the Veilstone myth, and I'd like you to look at it. In short, it says that a young, foolish man found a sword and killed Pokemon without thinking. When all the Pokemon disappeared, he searched far and wide, but then he found one very much unlike the others.
Wait, what? The following year, no Pokemon appeared.
Pokemon disappeared. He searched far and wide, but then he found one very much unlike the others. This Pokemon told him, "If you bring harm, we will take our toll to protect ourselves." Seeing his mistake, the young man snapped the sword and begged for forgiveness. The Pokemon then vanished to a place beyond seeing. Turn back.
So what, Giratina comes in, says, you kill a fucking Pokemon, I'll kill you back, and then just like, no, please, and then leaves. That's funny.
The place where Giratina resides is right near Veilstone
Oh,
City,
that's true. Turnback Cave. Because Turnback Cave is all, like, is it in Veilstone City where you've got all, like, is it near, like, the, I think this place has the unknowns. Is that what Turnback Cave is? It has all the friggin' unknown routes and stuff like that, or at least that's a similar location, I believe. And, well, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense.
The myth basically saying that Giratina taught humans a lesson about balance.
I've never even heard that myth before. I never really looked into the Cantaloupe City stuff, but there's a lot of stuff in there that could definitely be very interesting to actually explore. I really do like that theory and that idea that Giratina was the Pokemon that, you know, confronted the man. That'd be very interesting.
Before returning to a place beyond seeing, obviously referencing the distortion world. As a fun side note, this myth also explains why we don't use weapons to battle others, instead opting to use Pokemon to settle our disputes. Either way, that's only one of the many
And, well, sure.
examples for Giratina working towards restoring the world's order. Because in Pokemon Platinum, Cyrus chains Dialga and Palkia and also subdues the Lake Trio, to which Giratina responds to by dragging his ass to the distortion world.
Yep.
There,
Oh my god, I forgot it did that. That actually fucking scared me. But yeah, so that's what I'm thinking is like Giratina is a Pokemon that acts as like the last line of defense effectively, or like it'll interject when it thinks it needs to, less bound by like certain rules like Dialga or Palkia to be summoned, and it will actually interject when things get bad enough. It's kind of like Zygarde with it being the order Pokemon, but fucking Zygarde doesn't do its job, clearly. I don't think this explains too much about like Legends Arceus though. Like in Legends Arceus, why exactly was Giratina partnering up with Volo to try and take down Arceus? There's some stuff you can make there. We'll see.
It doesn't actually destroy him. It only
Very
pulls
interesting.
Cyrus away before
Very
he could
interesting.
misuse Dialga's and Palkia's powers. Then there's Volo in Legends Arceus. Volo grew up longing for the power and answers coming from his heritage, and when he finds Giratina in Turnback Cave, he sees it as an avatar of destruction he can
See. I want to just go ahead and back it up real quick and review it.
Volo grew up longing for the power and answers coming from his heritage.
True.
And when he finds Giratina in Turnback Cave, he sees it as an avatar of destruction he can use to force an audience with Arceus. But that's Volo's projection. Giratina was always a guardian.
That's
it
fair.
Just played the villain to test him, to test the player, and to maintain balance. After Volo's defeat,
To test Volo and to test the play, I guess you could make the idea. That's kind of, I guess that still can kind of explain it, right? Again, my whole idea is leaning towards like Giratina being a more chaotic character that like tries to do, like, it's obviously meant to do the right thing and it does do the right thing, but it does it in a more chaotic and like violent way, or like typically, or it'll like it'll stop these massive events or like major like wrongdoings or whatever, right? And I guess with Volo's case, it ripping open the distortion is mostly to just act as a test. And again, that's a chaotic test, like something that is non-conventional. Where like Dialga or Palkia likely would never do something like that. They would probably say like, they probably just like, I don't know about kill Volo, but just like not respond to his requests or anything like that, right? Giratina takes a different route to it and actually does respond to his like kind of request, and does obviously have the power to like break open the rifts, make Pokemon go frenzy, stuff like that. But I think it does it ultimately potentially for like a good reason. Maybe. I don't know, but like that's definitely more of a stretch though, if anything.
Giratina doesn't gloat or punish him. Instead, it shows Volo that he was wrong. The so-called renegade Pokemon was never a destroyer, but a silent protector, and Volo's own darkness blinded him to that truth.
I guess you could say that. It's kind of like Zygarde in Horizons. I'm kind of a spoiler if no one's watched like the latest stuff, so I guess, you know, skip forward about a minute or so, like if I am talking too much about it. But it's kind of like how Gibby and Zygarde was mostly staying with him and fighting with him in order to like show him the true bond or whatever between people and Pokemon and stuff like that, and like how his viewpoint was definitely very not wrong, I guess, because technically, you know, he does have a point in a lot of it, but it was misguided or like misjudged, misused, right? So that does definitely, there's some fun parallels there. Like being more of like showing Volo that he was wrong. You can say as such, I suppose. I think, and also Giratina like fleeing the battle could be less so Giratina fleeing because it lost, more so fleeing because it got what it needed, right?
I also don't think that Giratina actually cared whether Volo succeeded or failed in the way a human might. It only cares about maintaining balance, not about
Fair.
good or evil, right or wrong, or anything of those similar lines. If Volo had truly upset the world's balance, Giratina would have intervened, just as it did with Cyrus. It acts with
I mean, I suppose, but at the same time, Volo, it did frenzy. I mean, it caused the frenzy of one of its brethren in Dialga and Palkia, depending on which one you choose, right? And then also the noble Pokemon of Legends Arceus. So at the same time, you know, again, I think a lot of the theories you're trying to make around Legends Arceus, Giratina, and how a lot of its theories kind of go is it's kind of stretching it a lot, because it's pretty hard to defend a lot of Giratina's actions there. But also at the same time, we can consider it, you know, Giratina doesn't, and like, in general, these gods probably don't see like the morality in the same sense like humans do. Giratina doesn't have exactly the same type of moral compass or something like that. It is, again, more of like a Pokemon that acts when it has to.
skills tip too far, not because it wants to rule or destroy anything. But that's just my idea. If you have a suggestion,
I think, yeah, I mean, it's a good theory for sure. I definitely think it's a good theory. Go subscribe to Major Dragon. Amazing stuff. Watch all of his theories. They're very, very good. We might watch the Cyrus Rotom one in another video. I'm not too sure. Again, if they ever want me to take this stuff down or like don't want me to do these reactions, that's perfectly fine with me. No harm, no foul. It's their content. They have the complete decision, you know, behind that. And of course, you know, if anyone doesn't like me to do this reaction content, I'll cut it out. I'll make other videos. No big problem. Okay, no big issues. But yeah, go check out their stuff. Cool Giratina theories. I'm not sure exactly a lot of the points in relating to Legends Arceus were too correct, but I do like a lot of their ideas of Giratina, less so being like a Lord of Gravity or antimatter, but more so being an opposite in a sense, yes, but not in the opposite sense of being like legit antimatter, but just the opposite of kind of everything. More of a chaotic Pokemon that is good and good-hearted, but it also is trying to maintain the order. And at least in my opinion, it will only really try and do that if Dialga and Palkia are having issues, or like they can't handle the problem, or it just kind of has to interject like by itself, right? Anyway, that's the theory, and that's the reaction. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below. I'll see you later, and I hope you all enjoyed. Peace.